Making my rounds this morning, mostly checking on these cows and calves, making sure that, you know, one isn't in with the other where they shouldn't be. Looks like everybody is staying put, which is good. It's been about 4 days since we weaned the calves, and I'd say everybody's getting pretty comfortable with the new arrangement. I don't see really anybody crying for each other anymore, and they're pretty comfortable grazing apart now. See how these guys are doing here. Yeah. The calves are this age, they're not quite big enough to reach in here and get the entire bale. So every few days or so, I just keep an eye on it, but I'll have to come in here with the pitchfork and knock this over so they can get to it. And then for some reason on the other feeder, they haven't picked it right down to the ground like they did on the first one. Something about this bale they like a lot better. I'm running around this morning checking on everything because I know for the rest of the day I'm pretty much going to be living inside the LS. I really need to get my groundwork done in the hayfield because I'm probably going to need to get that planted within the next couple of weeks, and I've still got a lot of work to do to get that ready. In fact, today I'm going to be sitting on the LS disking probably all day, and you guys have already seen a lot of footage of me disking. So I thought to make it a little bit more interesting for you that today we'll do a question and answer while I'm in the tractor. So let me hop on here and post that, and hopefully by the time I get started in the tractor, you guys will be leaving me some good questions. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. I've been out here disking for about 3 hours now, and this whole time I've been watching your guys' questions rolling in. So first of all, I just want to thank everybody for submitting questions, and let's get into it. Let's start answering these. And before I start getting into the questions that I'm seeing on YouTube, I'll start with one that I've seen in the comments a couple times. Pretty sure it's from the same person because it's been worded almost the exact same both times, and they're asking me, why am I having to be so close to the camera when I talk? The The reason, and that's gonna be especially true in this video, is because my microphone is on the camera. So the closer I am to the camera, the better you guys are gonna be able to hear me. In the past, I've tried using lapel mics and a few different things, and I just kind of settled on just liking the shotgun mic on the camera the best. And honestly, it's not even that I like it so much, it's that it's been the most reliable. It seems like with the lapel mics, half the time when you go back to watch your footage, you realize that there was an issue and you have no audio. The first question I see is from Ann O'Reilly, and she's basically asking for a chicken update. I don't really talk about the chickens all that much. This isn't really a chicken channel, but I do mention them occasionally, and there actually have been some developments recently. Yesterday, actually, as I'm filming this, I butchered all the meat birds. I didn't end up filming any of it. I kind of thought that I might, and you know, that I'm just so limited as what you can show, and I just decided not to. But all the meat birds have been harvested now. It feels good to get that one off my plate. As for the layer hens, there's really not too much to say about them. We feed them, they lay eggs, and that's about it. I have noticed that lately the layers have slowed down production quite a bit, and I think that we're probably going to end up getting some more at some point. I'm not exactly sure when, but we need to increase our flock a little bit, because during the summertime we get enough eggs, but this time of year I don't think they can quite keep up with us. The next question I saw a lot of, I can't really credit it to one single person, but several of you have asked about the side-by-side that broke down. Gosh, it's been a while now. And the update with that is there really is no update. I haven't torn into it yet. I kind of think that I know what is the matter with it, and I almost ordered parts, but I decided that I better actually disassemble it and verify what the problem is before I go spending a bunch of money on it. So I've just kind of been slammed here trying to get all this other stuff done, but I was just thinking about that myself the other day, that, you know, I really need to get that fixed. So it's coming soon. And I guess the same goes for the Jubilee. A bunch of you have asked me about that as well. I've got no plans of giving up on either one of these projects, but lately I just haven't had the time, and I think that this winter will be a good time to tackle those. I think with the Jubilee, a lot of what needs to start happening is painting, and I think that in order to do that, I'm gonna have to build some sort of a paint booth inside the shop and maybe put a space heater in there or something, because pretty soon it's gonna be too cold to really get a good paint job on that. Next question I see here is about the calves, and forgive me, but I can't pronounce the name of the person that asked this question, but hopefully you'll recognize it if you're the one that asked. But anyway, the question is about basically what effects the color of the calves will have on the ones that I decide to sell. As many of you know, black-hided cattle generally bring more money, and I think that's what this person is sort of hinting at. So this year I think that the replacement heifers will probably all come from Rivet, just because I want that genetic diversity that he brings. And when I ran the calves through and weighed them, it seemed like the heifers that really stood out as the ones that I liked were out of him. There was one black white face that was pretty nice also, so we might end up keeping her, and she very likely came out a little boy. But as far as the color with the calves, with the heifers at least, that is going to play a role. With the steers, on the other hand, I'm not really too worried about genetic diversity with them, so I think I'll end up keeping, you know, somewhere around 8 or 10 like I normally do for our harvest steer program, and that'll just be based off of what looks good regardless of color, and then everything else is going to end up going to the sale barn. Steve Saxton asks, at what subscriber count did I really believe that I could quit my job and do this full time? And I like that question because it's kind of hard to answer. I think when I actually did make that leap, I was right around 60,000 subscribers. But I guess really it wasn't about the number of subscribers that made me think it could be possible. It was more about you guys consistently viewing the videos that kind of made me think maybe I had a shot. And of course my wife played a big role in this as well. Her belief in me never wavered. I think I doubt myself a lot more than she does. So yeah, everything kind of came together, and it also didn't hurt that the job that I was at, I really didn't particularly like. And you know, management was doing some things that I didn't like, so it just kind of made it easy to take the chance. Well, it's quite a bit later in the day now. You can probably tell by the way things look outside the window. Before I get into any more questions, I figured I'd give you a little progress report as to where we're at in the field. The hour meter on the tractor says we've been going for 7.2 hours, and I would say we're over 3/4 of the way done, but it's hard to tell because I'm going on an angle. So, you know, like in the middle of the field, your passes are extremely long, and then as you work your way down into the corners, your passes get short, but then you're spending a lot more time turning. So I don't know, we're getting through it. When I started disking today, I filled the tractor up all the way to the top with diesel, and I was very curious as to how many hours that would get me through today. And more than that, I was curious if I would be able to make it all the way across the field on one tank, because that was a big complaint with my other tractor. A full tank of diesel on that machine would not get across this field. I would have to bring like 5-gallon jugs out here so that I didn't have to go back to the big tank to fill up. I'm cautiously optimistic. It's looking like the LS is gonna make it, but time will tell. A lot of people have been asking about my leg, and if you're wondering why would people be asking about my leg, it's because a couple videos ago, a calf nailed me pretty good while I was weaning. So I'll tell you, when it first happened, it didn't really bother me that much, but you know, the adrenaline's pumping and you're moving around. When it really started to bother me the most was that night when I got home and sat down to eat some dinner. Man, when I tried to get back up, holy smokes, my right leg was basically useless. But today it actually feels pretty good, so I think I'm through the worst of it, and I appreciate you guys checking on me. Make D's asking how fast Callie can run. That's a good question. Mostly when I run her, it's on the four-wheeler, and I don't have a speedometer on that, but the times that I have run her with the side-by-side, she usually tops out around 35 or maybe just a little bit faster for a short distance. I think she could maintain high 20s all day long. Oh, I thought I'd jump out of the tractor for a minute and stretch my legs. You know, if you sit too long in one spot, sure get stoved up. I don't know if you can tell, but the ground moisture is absolutely perfect for disking right now. It's dry enough so that the ground shatters very easily, but it's wet enough so that we're not making a bunch of dust. Another question that I've been seeing pop up from several different people is about the status of the cow herd, and more specifically, do I have plans to expand it? Right now, for the amount of acreage that we have, I think we're pretty well at capacity. We're probably honestly pushing capacity a little bit. So without getting any more land, this is as big as we can be. Now, I try to go through life having the attitude of never saying no to opportunities, but at the same time, I don't want to expand just for the sake of expanding, meaning that if we did have an opportunity to expand, it would have to make sense. And all of that sounds very unambitious, I think, but I guess I've sort of shifted my focus from trying to grow and increase profitability that way to reaching into different markets and trying to be more profitable that way. After all, it's not about how many cows you have, it's about how profitable the cows that you do have are. And that kind of leads me into another question that I see in this list and have seen in the past before, and that's about whether or not I plan to hire help. The short answer is no. The long answer is that while I've got a lot of work for myself to do, I don't think that I could keep another person busy, and I certainly don't think that I could justify the cost of paying that person. So when it comes to employees, never say never, but at the moment, the answer is no. After the video about weaning the calves, a lot of people wanted to get a comparison between Rivet's calves and Little Boy's calves. And unfortunately, I didn't sort data that way. I guess I could go back and do it, and maybe I will. What I can compare though is this year's calf crop to last year's calf crop, and those numbers show some interesting trends. Last year, my heaviest calf, which I believe is 23-21, the one I'm always bragging about at the steer pasture, he was 40 pounds lighter than the heaviest calf this year. The average weaning weight from last year to this year wasn't that different. I think this year they averaged like 10 pounds heavier, which is still good and a trend in the right direction. But you must also remember that this year we pushed the calving season out a couple weeks. So not only did these calves average 10 pounds heavier, but they're also 2 weeks younger. Fact is, that was a big concern I had about pushing the calving season out, is I figured that I would have to pay for it with weaning weights, and that did not end up being the case. Someone going by the name of Blue Jay asked if I kept the mothers of the bottle calves from this year, and yes, we do still have both of them. One is cow number 44 and the other one was 57 or 58. I think it was 58. I see no reason to get rid of those cows, and if you're thinking, well, they abandoned their calf, technically Smokey's mother did abandon him, but number 44, Little's mother, I actually pulled him off of her. When it comes to abandoning a calf, I don't really hold it against the cow if it's a set of twins. If she did it to a single, that would be a problem, but as I've said many times, cows' brains just aren't really wired to take care of a set of twins. They really only want to take care of one. Joshua Miller left a comment saying that he just got himself a 9N tractor and wanted to know if I had an oil recommendation for it. In my 8N, I run 1540 because a heavier weight oil keeps better oil pressure in those older engines. So that's what I run, and I guess that's what I would recommend. Mario Martinez is asking about the cost difference between growing my own hay and buying my own hay. And I haven't actually run those numbers in several years. And I think the last time that I did do it, I was still making small square bales. But I do remember what they were. Back then, factoring in renting out the field, renting the equipment and everything, it cost me like $4.50 a bale to make a small bale. And during that time, I think you could buy a small bale for $8. Very close to a 50% cost savings. And the nice thing about growing your own hay is you know exactly what it is. Why don't I put a shade structure over the squeeze chute? I might. It's not high on my priority list. The main reason being is I'm afraid it would just become a wasp habitat. And then every time I went to work cows, yes, I would be in the shade, but I'd be fighting wasps off. So that's kind of giving me some pause. Well, it's starting to get dark. Pretty soon you guys aren't going to be able to see me. So I think we're going to end the question and answer session here. But I want to thank everyone again for submitting questions. Maybe tomorrow, if I've got some time to add to this video, we'll get through a few more of them. So let's pick it up there. It's the next morning now. I got finished last night, maybe around 7 or so, so it wasn't all that late, but it was dark. And I learned a couple things about the tractor. I put 9 straight hours on it, pretty much full throttle, pulling the disc all day. And the thing that I am most delighted with is that a full tank of diesel in this tractor lasts exactly that long. So if I fill this thing right up to the top, I know that I can get across the hayfield without having to refuel. 9 straight hours of pulling the disc is the hardest that I've worked the tractor since I've had it, and I gotta say, it did awesome. Almost like it was made to do it. Let's go feed some cows. It's kind of funny when I'm going down the road in the LS and the cows see it, they all start coming up to the corral because I guess they recognize the tractor now and they associate it with being fed. Another question that I saw some people asking was, why am I not rolling out the bales like I did last year? And there's several reasons. I'll start with because I've been watching Ranching Sodak and Rip Ranch, and they both bale graze like this because it concentrates the nutrients, it concentrates the manure, as opposed to spreading the bale out. I mean, right here where I'm standing is a good example of that. And you can also see how it's working out here. We would never have this much leftover hay and manure concentrated if we rolled the bales out. But probably the main reason why I'm not rolling the bales out is because I haven't built my bale unroller yet. And trying to roll these 6-foot, 1,000+ pound bales by hand, I've tried it and it's not impossible, but it's sure not fun either. In fact, just look at the ground right here where this bale was. I mean, there's a ton of seed on the ground. I guarantee that come spring, probably even before then, we'll start to see this sprouting and growing oats, wheat, and barley, exactly what the bales are comprised of. I do still plan on building a bale unroller though, because when I just drop a single bale like this and I want it to last them for 2 days, you'll see when the entire herd tries to swarm a single bale, it's just a little bit too chaotic. If we had it rolled out, everybody could easily access it, and I just think that that would be better. But for now, we're just doing what time allows, and this is what time allows. You can see the calves, and the cows for that matter, are not stressing out about being apart from each other, but the calves certainly know when the cows get fed, and they still feel like they ought to have a piece of that. Another thing that I'm doing a little bit differently this year is I'm trying to concentrate my bale distribution, basically. A fancy way of saying I'm really just only gonna bale graze in like these 2 checks and those 2 checks, with the idea being that if I can see good results from this, then I'll just kind of systematically do that across the entire acreage over the next several years. You know, each year we'll just do these 4 checks, and then these 4 checks, and then By the time we get across the entire pasture, we can just start over. Or I might do this for a couple years and decide I can't notice any difference and just give up on it entirely. The good news is I'm done disking for the year. The next job that we'll have to do out there is floating the field, which is a fancy way of saying smoothing it out. And at that point, it'll be ready to plant. Not sure exactly when that's gonna be. It's kind of weather dependent, so we'll just have to wait and see. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.